Hi, and welcome to the dinner agenda. This is Bo.
And this is CeeLo.
Oh, look at that microphone just come right into view there.
I realized that it was like on the top corner of my desk instead of right in front of me. So I was
Yeah,
like, I'm bringing it over. And this is
that
CeeLo,
was very star quality of you.
right? Total star quality.
How are you, Silo?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good,
I'm
good.
pretty good.
So
Mhm.
I have something interesting to share with you.
Okay.
Yeah, which I think is kind of a little bizarre-ish. Do you remember when we did our episode on conspiracy theories?
Yes,
And
I do. I
yes, you
do.
did.
Mhm.
Okay, so we did that episode on conspiracy theories, and we talked a little bit about uh, Dave and his blood clots that he got after the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes.
And then he got, so we got that treated. And then he had another blood clot that he almost died from.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
And then we got that treated. And then the doctor at the time, the hematologist at that time had said, it's still probably just like a one-off thing, then Dave gets another blood clot. So he's had three. So at this point in time, it's like, listen, something's up. So he
But
goes,
only one of them was, like, that serious kind of life-threatening, like, all of
yeah.
they're serious to begin with, but there was
Mhm.
one they were particularly concerned about?
So, yes, kind of correct. I think the first time it happened, he had a very large blood clot, and then when they did the ultrasound or the X-ray or whatever the imaging tests,
Yeah, yeah.
they found that his leg was riddled with blood clots, like riddled is what they said. So
Oh,
there had been a lot in there, and then when he had the pulmonary embolism.
yes.
That was obviously the most serious one because it had broken off. We were actually
Right.
had been on a plane,
That's right.
right?
On
Which
their
is when this
trips.
occurred, which is, why they say it's important to, yeah, if you have blood issues. Anyways, so he had the pulmonary embolism then. And then from that point on, he was put on a low dose of a blood thinner, right? It
Yes.
was like a low dose. And then this most recent time, he got another blood clot. It was a smaller blood clot. It was in his leg, and we're assuming it was smaller because he had been on a small dose of the
The thinners.
thinners.
Yeah.
So, but the fact that he was on the lower dose of the thinners should have meant that he would not have
Yeah,
had a blood
and
clot,
still
right?
got it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So his hematologist said, "Okay, we've got to run a bunch of tests." So they did that. They ran all kinds of tests. They looked for everything. They looked for cancer. They looked for genetic reasons. They looked for everything. Certain kinds of diseases that cause blood clot. Like they looked for everything. He finally got his results, and it's like everything is negative, 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 negative. So I said to
That's
Dave,
like one of those scenarios where you're like, "Yes, this is good news. This is awesome." And then you're like, "Wait a
but
fucking second. Now, like, so what is it then? Like, what's
right.
causing them?" Yeah.
So there's nothing. All we know is now he's going to have to be on a very high dose of blood thinners for the rest of his life because obviously he's had just too many, like it's too risky now at this
Yeah.
point for him not to
Totally.
be. But I said to Dave, I bet you fucking anything that it was that AstraZeneca shot because the AstraZeneca shot, they had said in the beginning that it can cause blood clots. That was one of the vaccines that was, you know,
Yeah.
kind of,
I
they
remember
were
that. As, like,
yeah,
a
and
potential
so
side effect.
yeah, and
No.
so I'm actually wondering if maybe Dave is just susceptible to them, right?
Yeah.
And this kind of kickstarted it, or maybe the vaccine started it in him. You know how some people who get COVID or some people who have had the vaccines have very adverse side effects,
Yes.
and some of them last for very, very long. Maybe Dave is just one of those people. I don't know, but I'm starting to question whether or not it was that AstraZeneca shot.
So, what did he ask the doctor that
He
or
did. And the doctor said, "Well, I can't really
don't know?
confirm." Yeah,
Can't confirm or deny.
that's
Yeah,
right.
that's kinda crazy to think about
Yeah,
it because it
yeah,
was I remember it being a potential side effect, but
yeah.
they're like the benefits far outweigh the risks for most
Most
people.
people. I think,
So,
but he can't get the vaccine anymore, by the way. So his doctors basically said, like, you're done with those. Like, unfortunately, you're going to have to just try to keep yourself as safe
wow.
as possible because they can't take any more chances, right?
Yeah,
So,
totally, that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. How does
So,
Dave feel about that?
um, He's actually okay with it. I think I feel a little bit more nervous about it than he does.
Yeah.
I still get the vaccine when they're available, like, just for
Yeah.
myself. He doesn't seem to care. I mean, he's kind of like, "You know what it is now, and I don't just I'll fight it off. It's the flu and, whatever," is what he's kind of
He's such
feeling
a
right now,
chill
but
guy, eh? He's just so chill.
just yeah, he doesn't worry like we do.
Yeah.
But talking about conspiracy theories,
Yes,
yeah, did you hear that there was yet another assassination attempt on Trump?
I did. I haven't
Can you
read
believe it?
any of the details, although I did see something about somebody trying to take a shot, but no shot was fired, but
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
the Secret Service took the guy down who was trying to shoot him.
Yeah, yeah, apparently he was on, Trump's, golf course,
Right.
in Florida, and, from what I understand, I guess the Secret Service had seen a barrel of a gun kinda coming through the bushes, and so they kind of, were able to take the guy down. It's some 58-year-old guy who's had trouble with, the law in the past as well, but it's like, I have to say, I know this sounds very, very conspiracy
Yes,
conspiracy theorists.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk like this the rest of the time. But I,
And the listeners drop and drop.
yeah, exactly right. But the debate with Kamala and
Yeah,
him
yeah,
was what, the week before,
yes,
right? And she really held her own. She really, really held her own against him. And I just find it a little
more than.
Yes, and I just
Mhm.
find it a little suspicious that, when he had the first assassination
Yeah,
attempt, he was definitely using that as a marketing tool for sure.
yeah,
And you're like, "Yep." And now he had this debate where Kamala really kind of showed her strength, and he just kept repeating immigration, immigration, immigration. That was pretty much all that he was kind of responding to. And I think everybody kind of, watching knew that, okay, this is going to be a battle. The two of them are really
yeah,
going to go at this. It's not what one is weaker than the other kind of deal.
yeah.
And I'm just wondering, I don't know.
Like, you're
Did he do it?
thinking the conspiracy. I agree with you. I think she did a
Do you?
phenomenal
Oh,
job.
I thought you meant about the conspiracy. Yeah, she
No,
did.
at
She
the
did a great
debate
job.
for sure,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I don't know, I feel like that I there's no I'll say this as my disclaimer, okay? There's
Okay.
no room for violence in politics. Like, as much as I can't even bear to look at Trump because he just grosses me out so much, I
Mhm.
still don't believe don't not believe, like, don't support any kind of violence like this.
Mhm, mhm,
Like,
mhm, for sure.
it's horrible, it's so bad.
Mhm.
But I'm also, like, leaning towards the conspiracy. I think the timing of it, the
Right?
opportunity for it,
Right.
and
Right,
I
so
would and I would put
yeah.
absolutely nothing past him. If the
Me
situation
too.
were reversed and somebody had taken a shot at Kamala, I would be like, "There's no way that that's some
Mhm,
fake thing, that there's no way." Like, that would
mhm.
never, but with him?
I know.
Come
I
on.
know, I know. I feel exactly as you do. It's just so suspect. You know what I mean? It's just and I know that he really enjoys the attention of it. Like from the last time that it had happened. Not that I'm saying that he enjoyed being a target, but you could tell that
Right.
he was reveling in the attention that was actually
Yes.
happening. Yeah, and so I do. I find it
Mhm.
a little suspicious that it happened so soon after. Yet again, it was another failed attempt. It's like,
Yeah. So
come on.
soon after he did poorly, right?
How
So he's
yeah,
trending down, he needs something to, like, lift him
yeah.
back
But
up.
it's like, how many of these shooters are such bad shots? Like, what are the odds? Like,
I don't know. I
you know
don't
what I
know.
mean? I don't know. I don't know. Don't get it. But anyways, that's my rant for today.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah.
yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
rant. It's a good
Is
rant.
that a good rant? Okay.
Mhm.
So what's going
I,
on with you?
I
Mhm,
don't really have too much. The kiddies have been back at school now for a couple weeks, and things
mhm.
seem to be going swimmingly.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, no major things. My
Okay.
son has been on time every single
What?
day so far.
What?
It's kind of a miracle, and I'm
It's
gonna knock on wood and do all those
yeah.
things because the end of grade 8, we were on a downward trajectory
Mhm.
on that front. He's
But
such a
this is grade 9 now, this
well,
SIBO.
this is what we talked about all summer, right? Like, this when the shit's gonna count, is when you gotta put your best effort in.
Mhm,
There's
mhm,
no,
mhm,
like, "It was a stupid assignment, I didn't wanna do." Can't do that anymore, you know? So, I
mhm,
think he's
mhm.
taking it seriously, so that's
I
good.
I hope it lasts. I hope it
Yeah.
lasts. I
Yeah.
hope he does not take after us in any way,
Yeah.
shape, or form when it comes to
I
high
know.
school.
I'm like, my kids cannot listen to our high
No,
school one.
no.
Um,
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question.
yes,
I
please do.
saw a post on Mel's, Facebook page.
Yes.
Yeah, tell me what happened there.
What
No.
I don't know what she posted.
Oh, sorry, about the your porch, your front porch.
Oh, we
Yeah.
have, cameras set up to capture mostly, moths and raccoons,
Moss.
um, and
Yep.
the dog flying off the back porch before she goes pee.
Mhm,
But one morning I woke up and I'm like, "Oh, the camera went off at" I don't know, it's like 3:55 AM, and I'm like,
mhm,
"Okay, let me take a look at it." Now, it was the front camera, not the back. The back camera is where I have my animals.
mhm,
Front camera, we don't usually get, but I figured maybe
mhm,
it's a raccoon. No. What
mhm.
do? I open this video. This lady is sneaking up our porch like she's gonna make some kind of noise to wake somebody up.
Uh-huh.
And then she's feeling along the side table, like, are there any packages or things here? And then
Well, could
she's
you not see?
feeling well, because it was dark and our outside light wasn't on.
Oh, okay, okay.
And then she's feeling down the inside of, like, the chair that's there to see if there's like, packages? I don't know,
Mhm,
like total
mhm.
porch pirate, but it was friggin' creepy.
It was creepy. I saw that video, and she looked strung out to me. She looked
Right?
like she was, yeah,
Total
that she was,
sketch.
like, itching for a bit of a fix, and I think that, she was probably looking for something to sell, but that's really for me, when I look at that, I find that very violating. Is that the right word? Like, I feel
Yes?
violated?
Yes. I don't like the idea of someone being on my porch, touching my little mosaic
No.
table and shit.
No, I know.
Yeah,
It's not nice at all. It's,
I know.
scary.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
sketch.
yeah. Well, I'm glad you have the camera. It's obviously working.
Yeah, well, I mean, then we send it out to our neighbors and, we get pictures of their cameras showing us the I think I mentioned it last time. He had, like,
Yeah.
Doctor Dolittle, all the animals, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's true. That's
good
true.
times.
Yeah, good.
All right, Bo, so, what do we got on the agenda for today?
Today, we've actually got a really special guest with us. We have Christine Glaves. Christine is a fitness and nutrition specialist specializing in hormonal weight loss. Christine is a registered holistic nutritionist, a certified professional trainer, and a yoga teacher. Welcome, Christine. We're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me tonight. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we're totally pumped. I can't wait. I've got a whole list of little questions for you. Before we kick things off, though, I will say this is not a medical podcast. And although Bo sometimes pretends, she's not an actual doctor. None of us are. So you should definitely seek your doctor's advice before starting any kind of fitness or nutritional changes. So that's our disclaimer for today.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so Christine, let's talk about how the heck you got started in this career. How did that happen?
So, I've always been very into the holistic side of health. I've always really been into fitness, but in my early 20s, I was actually diagnosed with C. difficile. So, very serious intestinal bacteria. I was in and out of hospitals trying to find some kind of relief. I got that diagnosis of IBS, and I just wasn't really feeling like I was getting the kind of care and help that I needed. I was in so much pain. I was in the ER going on morphine just to try to mitigate some of the pain I was feeling in my intestinal tract. They couldn't really help me much more than that. And then I started just doing a little bit of research on my own and stumbled upon peppermint oil capsules and papaya extract. effect. So I started taking the 2 of those, and almost instantly I started feeling better. So that kind of spiraled me down into this realm of holistic or natural health, always trying to see if there was a natural alternative first before I started getting into anything in the pharma realm. And I realized that there's a lot we can do naturally first before it ever escalates to that. And so that's my big thing, is really just empowering women to understand that there are much more natural alternatives than I think are talked about, or that we know about, or we're taught about, and just to really like empower them with reclaiming their own health and just taking it into their own hands.
That's awesome. Now so did you always follow this route right from school, or how did you kind of land yourself on it? I'm always curious to find how people find their callings, you know?
With their passion.
Yeah.
I feel like I knew my calling from a very young age. So after high school, I actually took nutrition in college, but it was a very based nutrition, working in an old age home, very much following the Canada Food Guide, and it really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I didn't pursue it, and then I actually started working for Hydro One, and so I was in their metering department. And during the pandemic, so I was with Hydro One for 11 years, and during the pandemic, I actually was responsible for disconnecting people's power that had lost their jobs, and just weighed so heavy on me that, I wanted so badly to be of service to people. And what I was doing was the complete opposite. I felt like I was really bringing a lot of harm into people's lives. So I worked with an incredible therapist. We kind of talked about like what I really first saw myself doing, what I wanted for myself, what I thought my daughter would be proud of. And it really started to dawn on me that it was holistic nutrition that I originally really wanted to do. And then I took a chance on myself. I quit my full-time job, left my pension, left my benefits, went back to school, all the while, homeschooling kids, and my husband was laid off, and it was a crazy time to be doing any of this. But I really believed in, especially that time where everybody's health was kind of at the forefront, that I wanted just something more for myself. I wanted to build a business that, my family would be proud of, but most importantly, that my daughter could be a part of, because spending time with her and really showing her everything that I've learned, and, getting her to understand her health. And as she becomes closer to puberty and, her hormones start going all crazy, that it's a journey together. And then hopefully she can kind of join me at some point in our lives.
It's funny that you talk about for your daughter and stuff, because I know, CeeLo, like you and I have talked about in the past, about, when we were growing up, our parents, there wasn't a lot of focus on kind of educating us or teaching us things. It was more about survival at that point in time, right? Where it's like you kind of learned stuff on your own when you went to school, and that was about as far as it went.
Yeah.
But listening to what you're saying right now, it's kind of like you're giving your daughter like a little bit of that, edge up kind of thing, because you're actually talking to her about things that a lot of us had to learn, and still actually, quite frankly, don't know, because there's a lot, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot that I know I don't know about it, but you're kind of giving her that sense of, there's not just one way of tackling things. There's a medical way, there's a holistic way. You can combine everything, but it's more about being in tune with yourself as a woman too, which I don't think she could ever learn from anybody else but her mom. Right. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And that's a big thing, right? Because once I start to educate one woman, she now has that knowledge to pass it down to her kids or her friends. Yeah. And then that gets the ball rolling of just that women empowerment aspect when it comes to health. And that's what I'm so here for, is just spreading that wealth of knowledge that I have, and hopefully women resonate with it and they can really take it, and then it starts to trickle down, and we can change the future that's coming up. And it's a little bit more normalized to understand the 4 cycles that we have in our menstrual phase, and all of that kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't even realize a lot about their cycle. Even 40-year-old women entering entering perimenopause when I'm talking to them, and they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, I have 4 different phases of my cycle, and we're not really taught a lot about
I don't know what you mean.
Okay, but wait.
It's like, wait. Let's guess. CeeLo, guess.
I need to I don't know what the 4 are.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
My eggs are all shriveled up now. That's the stage I'm in. But I want to go back to, I love, you're right. What you're teaching your daughter now about herself and her body and all of that is fantastic. I don't want to take away from that. But I think the best thing that you've taught her so far is to follow your dreams. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, don't get stuck in something where you're not, feeling invigorated by it. You're not, charging up your energy by it. You don't feel like you're doing something good. Like that to me. And now my daughter sounds like she's a couple of years older than yours, but I see that, right? Like as she's talking about what classes she's taking in high school that are going to lead to this, that are going to lead to this. And, I think that that's the most important thing for sure that you can teach them for 100%.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Agreed. Okay. So what are these 4 cycles? I need to know. It's like puberty.
Your menstrual.
Yeah.
Right. We all know that one. We have our follicular, which is the week after, leading into our ovulatory phase. And
okay. I know what you mean now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, we've both been through fertility treatments, so we know about the week. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
I remember all those now, but it's been a while.
Yeah. So, okay. So why is, when you say that that you specialize in hormonal weight loss, what does hormones actually have to do with weight loss?
Everything. So I specialize, I would say, more perimenopause. So that age where all of a sudden, everything that you've been doing up until that point doesn't work. So it's, kind of when you're going to the gym, or you knew how to cut your calories or what kind of foods to eat, and then the weight would fall off. Where now insulin dysregulation matters, what your thyroid is doing matters. If your estrogen's kind of going on a roller coaster, that matters. Cortisol being dysregulated. So all of those kind of encompass hormonal weight loss. So when I talk about hormones, I'm not just meaning the sex hormones. I do a lot of work with nervous system regulation, adrenal regulation, blood sugar regulation. So all of those things, as we get into perimenopause, all of a sudden become a little bit more unstable. So usually that stems from a little bit of burnout from motherhood or just busy careers. And, we live in such a society where it's like, go, 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 go. You thrive on that badge of honor. Like, I am so busy, but I am killing it. Where in fact, you're just killing your hormones, you're, killing cortisol, all of those kind of things. So that's kind of where I base my practice on, is showing women how to start regulating. A lot of times that does start with the gut, working on making sure that there's no inflammation going on, that the gut is, you're digesting, and you're having bowel movements 1 to 3 times a day, all of those kind of things. And
I'm sorry, 3 times a day?
1 to 3.
1 to 3.
I'm like
1 to 3, not.
Oh
yeah,
shit!
really?
No pun intended.
Considered regular. Yeah.
Really?
I didn't realize. Yeah, I know. I thought it was like 1 a day is like what you're aiming for. I didn't realize. Like I would assume that if you had more than 1, that there was an issue. But you're saying that that's normal.
Yeah. 1 to 3 is what's considered from the holistic point of view as like adequate bowel movements. Yeah.
I'm laughing. I remember
about poop.
Yeah, we're talking about poop, so I'm giggling like a little boy. I remember somebody saying to me, I can't remember who it was. Somebody saying to me, "We should be like dogs. You eat and then you shit." And I'm like, really?
What? No.
But that's if you're pooping 3 times a day, then it's pretty much. That's pretty much it.
Okay. You want to take what you need from those meals, and you want everything else to pretty much
vacate the premises.
Leave.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's showing that your body is actually kind of getting rid of waste and all that kind of stuff. Okay. I know that I've read a little bit about what you kind of do, and I know that you offer a diet program, as well as fitness classes and instruction as well. But before we actually talk about one of the key things that I remember reading about, which I'm really curious, that DUTCH hormone test,
Yeah.
I want to ask you. You touched on adrenal fatigue and
Yes.
cortisol. So
Yes.
there has been a lot of, especially, when I was in my low carb phase of my life where I was eating low carb, there was this doctor, and I can't remember his name now. I'll have to look him up, but he, Dr. Berg, I want to say, but anyways, I'll have to look him up. But he talked a lot about adrenal fatigue. What is adrenal fatigue?
It's literally just that you've either exhausted the adrenal function and they're just feeling, a little bit more tired than they should. So a lot of times when we're in that stress state or we've got a lot going on, so that stress state can be perceived or unperceived stress. Even if it's good stress, if we're like, yeah, I've got a lot going on and I'm loving this, we're still in that heightened state of our fight or flight or our sympathetic nervous system. So our cortisol is going to be elevated. So the longer we're in that state, the more exhausted our adrenals. They're trying to keep up with that level where they should be going up in a little bit of stress, and then you should be relaxed and that cortisol level should be coming down. And then if you're in a little bit of stress, like it should be a more of an ebb and flow versus way up here all the time. So our body can't sustain that. So what happens at that point is when it's chronically elevated, it's going to start crashing and you're going to be chronically low, and that would be a burnout stage. So when you're in that burnout stage, you're much more fatigued. You're probably waking up at 3 a.m., not being able to sleep. You're wondering, like, I'm so exhausted during the day. Why can't I sleep at night? And it's this vicious cycle. So that's kind of what goes on with when you have a little bit of adrenal dysregulation. I did just want to touch on one thing you said. So with everything I do, one of the things I do not do is anything to do with diets. So I never... I don't follow any specific diets. What I like to coach my clients on is how to eat the most nutrient-dense foods that they like. So I never deal with deprivation, fad diets, none of that. I really want women to understand that if there's a food that they love, that they can still have that in moderation. I like to educate them on what that food might do or contribute to. But I am not about restriction, because anytime we bring a lot of restriction in, it's not sustainable. And that's what my whole practice is based on, is sustainability.
Why are you
Like,
laughing,
it's
Celie?
totally not sustainable. I am so with whenever you try and restrict anything, it's almost like my brain like at first I'm all on board. We're not going to have any chocolate at 3:00. We're not going to have any. And a couple days will go by. I'm like, I am rocking this. And then all of a sudden I'm like, now I need all the chocolate at 3:00. So
Absolutely.
so I would be
It's
better
for
off to have like a small bite, satisfy it, maybe even go with some kind of, fancy organic cacao or something. I can't do it. I have to have my milk chocolate, but even just a small bite is better than trying to deprive myself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it's funny because, you're talking about the restriction, and I hear what you're saying. Celia, you're right about how it makes you want to have it and you're thinking about it and obsessing about it even more, but it also leads to binge eating disorder, which I have, right?
Yeah.
So I have to be very careful with restriction as well, because my entire life has been yo-yo dieting. And because you go through so many phases of restricting and then eating normally and gaining, and then restricting and losing and eating normally and gaining, and also not eating normally, because when you do restrict so much, and like you, CeeLo, it's like, you follow it to a T right at the beginning, right? And you're all motivated and all that other stuff. Yeah. But then the second you get that overwhelming, okay, I just can't take it anymore and I need to have that chocolate. I'm not having the piece. I'm having 3 chocolate bars, because in your head, you begin to start playing tricks on yourself that says, I better get it now, because if I don't, I'm not going to have it again. And it starts a very vicious cycle. So I'm actually really glad to hear that you don't focus on restriction, that you actually focus on like foods and how to feed your body, I guess. And Christine, let me ask you, do you think that there's an element, or is there an element, I should say, of like mindful eating in part of your regime, like where you're actually kind of paying attention to what your body needs? Or
So I don't right away get into mindful eating because I feel like there's such a disconnect that most women have between their mind and their body. So
okay.
until we're working in that holistic realm of really understanding what your body is telling you, knowing and understanding your signals, I feel like mindful eating sometimes is slapped on there as an excuse for what somebody's going to eat. So
Oh.
what I like to really do with my clients is educate them on foods that can fuel inflammation and foods that can fuel function. So if you understand what you're eating and how that is fueling your body for function, and what you're eating and how that's creating inflammation, you're able to make a very informed choice with understanding what the food is doing. Once we get in that kind of cycle of really knowing the different types of food, what's anti-inflammatory, what's high protein, what's a good quality carbohydrate, then we can start doing that mindful eating, because we understand now what the food does, how it makes our body feel, and then we can bring that full connection. So anytime I feel like we work on that more holistic level, it does take a little bit longer because there's so much kind of backpedaling we have to do to really understand, our mental state, the signals our body is telling us, things that we thought were normal that aren't actual normal feelings that we should be feeling, common but not normal, then we can start to really rectify. And I like to take a slower approach so that people don't feel so overwhelmed, and that the changes they make, they're successful with implementing them, because when you're successful, that empowers you even more to want to keep going. It takes that yo-yoing away when you're like, wow, I've got this. It's been a month and I feel incredible. So that's then propelling you to go forward versus that negative mindset of, oh man, I just ate that chocolate. Like, why did I do that? I'm a horrible person. And then you have that negative aspect to something that should be so good for you and so empowering, and give you all this energy, and it's now something that you hate because it's this hardship and this burden. And that's what I really try to get away from. And I really do understand and sympathize with, what women go through with all of the fads, all of the trends, all of the supplements, all of the influencers. Everybody is trying to make money off of your pain points. And that's what I want to kind of steer clear of and really empower women to be like, no, like, you've got this without any of that.
The education around food has come, like what we know now versus what we knew, back when we were learning about food back in the day, has changed so much. So I think that you have to go out and start to educate yourself if you want to learn and if you want to change.
Absolutely.
Many moons ago, when I was working with this awesome personal trainer, we had done this no sugar for 21 days. So nothing with added sugar and no sugar, right? And for me, I'm like, my weakness is definitely a sweet tooth. And so for me, it was tough at first, but I was like all about trying this because we kind of put this little time box around it. And I can remember, I think in the third week, I was allowed to reintroduce fruits because I was staying away from fruits at first. And I remember taking that first, I think it was like berries, raspberry, blackberry, something like that. It tasted like candy in my mouth. It tasted so sweet. Like, I can't even remember it tasting that sweet prior, right? And it was crazy to me. And I think one thing that I did learn was if you do take it away for a bit and then reintroduce it, you can fill the sugar fix with other things that were better for me and more satisfying and better nutrition wise. Not that Twix bars are not nutritious. I'm sure there's something in there. No, I'm kidding. But Christine's looking at me like, girl, come on now. Don't be crazy. But the other thing too was, one of the things that we were kind of testing out was, how does dairy make you feel? Does it upset your tummy? Are you bloated? Are you this? Are you that? And I'm like, I mostly feel fine. I mostly feel fine. Things don't tend to bug me. But when I stopped the sugar for the 3 weeks, I didn't realize how bloated I was because my tummy measurement came down by like almost 3 inches in that time frame. And I was like, I had no idea that I had just felt like that for so long. And
And didn't know.
it wasn't until after that I had done that I was like,
Well,
holy crap.
had you lost weight, CeeLo, or was it just like reduction around your tummy area?
I had lost a little bit. I mean, we were working.
Mhm.
I was at the gym and working out and doing that. But so I was like progressing in the right direction. But for me, it was the inches off the tummy. It was clearly not a weight thing. It was a
Mhm.
bloated thing that
Mhm.
I couldn't believe that it had been so long that I just never even noticed how bloated I was feeling on all that sugar. It's crazy.
So, Christine, what's your take on sugar then? Like, is that a big no-no, a big bad food?
So it would depend. If somebody is, a lot of times women are dealing with candida. So that's an overgrowth of yeast. So it's a digestional or GI issue. And sugar feeds the yeast. So if there's no candida and the digestive system's working great, I'm still a big no refined sugar.
Okay.
But things like honey, maple syrup, we use dates a lot. So we actually will take like organic medjool dates and put peanut butter in them and some chocolate chips on top.
What?
And it's incredibly sweet. You only need one or two, and it really satisfies that little bit of sugar.
Yeah.
And you're not getting the huge inflammatory response that you would if you were to have had a Twix bar.
Twix are my weakness. A friend of mine was just saying a recipe where they took the dates and almost made it like a little frozen bite, covered it in chocolate and put some sea salt on it. And so it was like having a salted caramel chocolate.
That sounds absolutely delicious. I think I'd enjoy that for sure.
I should send you my recipe because I actually have a recipe for healthy Twix, and it's a layer of almond flour crust, and then you get almond butter, and I think there's some dates in there too, and it literally tastes like a healthy Twix bar.
Okay, fine, I'll try it. I'll try it
for research purposes, CeeLo. You must try it.
Yes,
you must try it. Okay, so quick question. Can you just explain to me refined sugar? What is refined sugar? Because you said honey and like that's okay. Maple syrup, is that okay?
Yes. Yep.
So why that versus, I'm assuming, is refined sugar just like that white granulated sugar?
Your white sugar, any kind of like corn syrup, those kind of things. So that's what I stay away from. I'm really lucky. We have a maple syrup farm down the street, and most people have the option to get local honey. So I'm not talking about like the bear that you squeeze and it's very sugar or very processed honey. I'm talking about, supporting your local bee farmers and getting some local honey. Local honey will also help with allergies because of the pollen, all of the flowers that are in your local area. So we do fermented garlic honey anytime we're sick from local honey, and we're not sick often. So that's really good.
That is actually very interesting. Why is that sugar that comes from the honey and the maple syrup better than the refined? I mean, I get the honey part because especially if it's unpasteurized honey, right? Or raw honey, whatever they call it, raw honey. Because I know that there's still a lot of the good enzymes that are in that honey that do good for your body. But maple syrup is maple syrup. So why is that okay versus refined?
It's just the process. So they're not being highly processed. Like you said, right? Honey actually has some really good properties to it that are beneficial to your health. I would say like maple syrup in moderation, like really good quality maple syrup. Still, you're still getting some minerals from that as well. It's just that like refining process that I really like to stay away from, just for the health aspect of it, but for, environmental aspect of it, where you have all these refineries and, it's contributing to, what have you. But we'll have minimal maple syrup, more honey when we are doing any kind of like sweets.
And your body can't break down refined sugars or refined processed foods as easily, if at all, in some cases, I'm sure, as it can au naturel, right? You're going to get more out of eating an orange than you will from drinking orange juice.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
I'm trying to put it so, and like Bo's still looking at me like I'm crazy.
No. I get it. I get
about an orange.
And no. I get what you're saying. Like I would assume that eating a solid orange is going to have your body working a little bit harder to work it off, and absorb the nutrients and all that other stuff than it would be to just drink a glass of orange juice. I totally get that. In my mind about the sugar though, it was like sugar, in my mind, sugar is sugar, right? But I guess that's really not the case because there's different, I guess, benefits to it. And then, I think,
like,
what you just
processed,
said
right? So think like anything processed is not going to be as good for you and harder for your body to digest or ingest or get nutrients out of.
So what about inflammation then? Because you touched on inflammation, and I know that there's so many things that I've been reading lately about chronic illnesses that are kind of coming up because of all this inflammation that we have in our body. And, I'm not sure I fully understand all of that, but I don't know. Is there any education you can give us about this, about inflammation and maybe what causes it?
Yeah, definitely. So inflammation, I would say, is probably one of like the worst things for our body. It does fuel so much disease. It is going to stress our adrenal glands because our stress response is going to be enacted because of the inflammation throughout our body. So one of the big things I see, because I specialize in hormones and the digestive system, is inflammation stemming from the gut. So a lot of times it kind of starts with somebody just not having a digestive system that's working optimally. So they might have low stomach acid, and that's not breaking down the amino acids. It's not sterilizing bacteria, virus, yeast that comes into the body. And all of that starts to go into the intestinal tract. So when you have bacteria or virus or, food particles coming into your intestinal tract, it starts to get permeable. So when the intestines start to open up a little bit, food and bacteria and viruses and yeast start to leave the intestines through the circulatory system, creating inflammation. So that would be a chronic systemic inflammation that's happening that a lot of people don't even realize. So inflammation can then exacerbate any kind of arthritis. Any disease ending in itis is inflammation. It can havoc on our hormones. It's going to start to, you're going to start to retain weight if you're chronically inflamed. Allergies, brain fog. If you are dealing with candida, that will create inflammation as well. Candida actually off gases neurotoxins. And so you're just becoming in this cycle of inflammation and then gut irregularity and then more inflammation and then more gut issues. So really understanding how food, I would say food is one of the biggest things that's going to impact inflammation levels, food, alcohol, that kind of stuff, is understanding, like I mentioned earlier, what kind of foods are going to fuel that inflammation and what kind of foods are going to fuel you for function. And we always want to be understanding what our food does. And if it is fueling us for inflammation, then we have to understand that that is what we are doing, and that is going to be the outcome of, eating that food. And I'm not saying, I'm talking more of that ultra processed food. really creating that inflammation. So we're not really getting much nutrient from that. It's not really doing anything for our body, but creating this cycle of inflammation.
That's crazy. Earlier on, when you mentioned that when you were kind of in your teen years, you had IBS, they thoughtfully diagnosed you with IBS and then left you to fend for yourself. I'm sure I've heard that from so many different people. It's like, oh, this is what it is. Thank you. Bye. And you have nothing. You have nothing. And I know a few people who've also done some like food allergy or food intolerance testing to figure out what might be causing it. Like a lot of times if, you know, your gut is bugging you or your digestion is bugging you, it's like, okay, well, cut out dairy, cut out this, cut out. So have you done or tried any of that with either with yourself when you were going through it or with some of your clients?
Absolutely. So I didn't do any actual testing, but I did do like a food, I call them food mood journals, because not only am I writing down if I'm getting like a physical symptom, but I'm also writing down like, am I agitated? Am I getting tired? Am I getting angry? Like, do I feel really hot? Because those are all signs and symptoms of something not agreeing with you very well. So I began to notice that it was like very much bread products, gluten, yeast that were really triggering me. Dairy, if it's not goat cheese, will trigger me. So I understand my trigger foods now, and then I can understand, like, if I'm going out for a slice of pizza, I know what it's going to do to me. So I have to, you know, risk versus reward there. But I do the same thing with my clients. I really do get them to start writing down for 3 days what they're eating, how they're feeling, every single thing they eat, because I want them to also understand what they're eating and how it's making them feel. And then after the 3 days, we kind of sit down and we'll talk about the foods that they ate and what they've noticed. And I really like when they come up with that conclusion of what's kind of going on with them. That's just one more step in that connection to self. But it's usually those trigger foods, sugar, dairy, gluten, those higher inflammatory foods. And I always have a lot of people say, like, you know, why are these, you know, why is wheat so bad now? And it's more of the growing process, the way it's, you know, the pesticides they use on the wheat fields, the monocropping that happens, you know, the soil that's just not as mineralized anymore because of monocropping. So in the refinement process, as they start to like break it down, it's stripped of all nutrients. And then you must have seen enriched food. They just add synthetic vitamins back to it. Yeah. So a lot of those enriched foods, it might say it has 500% of your whatever vitamin it's talking about, but that doesn't mean that your body will actually absorb that. So if we can get vitamin C from an orange, that vitamin C is very bioavailable to us. We'll very much absorb that and utilize it. But if we're getting, you know, 500 IUs of vitamin C or whatever, you know, we're getting from a supplement that's a very poor quality supplement and not tested for bioavailability, our body's not going to be utilizing that. So that's kind of why they're so inflammatory these days.
Yeah. Sorry, Bo, you were going to ask something?
No, I was going to ask Christine a question about, now I just lost my train of thought.
Okay, good, because mine was better. Damn it. I think that... I think the food journal and how you feel, but not just, you know, having like a gut reaction, like feeling agitated. Are you feeling red in the face? Is such a good way to look at it, because I feel like, you know, like with me, I had no idea that sugar was having that kind of impact. Right. And so until I sit down and say, this is what I ate and this is how I feel, I'm not going to realize the impact the foods I'm eating are having on my body, on my mood, etc. So I think that's a little bit aha moment there. I'm like,
And I remembered what I was going to ask.
You're welcome.
Thanks, CeeLo. So actually, when you were talking about how wheat is grown and produced now versus how it used to be. So There's this cheesy show on TV called Victorian Bakers, which I will sometimes watch late at night when I'm having trouble sleeping because it's on like TVO or whatever. It's like this cheesy, but I love it. And they talk about basically they recreate recipes from the past, right? Like the 1800s, that kind of thing. And what they were actually talking about in one of the episodes was that back in those days, wheat, specifically for the working class, was whole, like it was whole wheat. And that's what they would use for the bread. And that was considered the poor person's bread. Whereas when you had money, you would have the white bread, and that would mean, you know, so they would be stripping out those nutrients. Little did we know that the poor bread was actually a much healthier version. And that led me to, like, because if we had stayed with that, I think there would be a heck of a lot less problems. But then that also led me to thinking about, you know, the society that we're in right now and the, you know, need for making money and how we've progressed from, because there's been so much controversy, Christine, about when the obesity epidemic actually started, right? And there some literature says it's when the fad diets really began to kick in, right? Where people were saying, cut out all your fat. And that was kind of, you know, leading to higher things of obesity because everybody was substituting the fat with the sugar. And then others are like, well, it's because you're eating all of these super processed foods and, you know, and they're highly palatable. And so that's all you want to eat. So what's your take on all of that? Yeah.
Oh man. I feel
Great
like that's
question.
a really because really, like if you wanted to dig really deep into when that kind of started, it would be probably the Industrial Revolution, right? When they're really a lot of products, you know, back then, you know, farmers fed a community and they had raw unpasteurized milk. And then when we got into the Industrial Revolution, a lot of people were like, yes, pasteurize, it's killing all of this and that. But what people didn't realize that these now commercial buildings were feeding these cows garbage, literal garbage off the streets. So that's what was then fueling function in these animals. And then they had to really pasteurize this milk because it was contaminating the milk. So I feel like when all of this processing started, we really got away from that farm to table, growing your own food, understanding where your food came from, having that connection to food, but also having that connection to gathering, right? People got together and they either bartered or trade. Farmers markets were much more popular then. And then we kind of got into the corn syrup, the cereals, the you know, pasteurized, conventional ways that we're trying to make our life easier, when in fact it was actually making us sicker and sicker and sicker. And then from there, we had the pharma companies, you know, kind of swooping in to save the day, and a spiral of one fueling the other in this vicious, you know, follow the money type of trail.
100%. Guys, we could be a fucking Netflix show right now. We could do a doc. That's how good this is. It's so true. All of that process, convenience, people making money, solving, you know, one problem by doing something worse. You know what I mean? In the whole food production. Oh,
but how do you break free from that? Like, how do you, I don't know. I mean, I find it very overwhelming to think about how to eat then. Like what, you know what I mean? How do you break free from that?
We really try to focus on getting our meat from a butcher that we know where they source their meat from. So for us, we are really lucky that we have a butcher in our town, and I have been to the farm that they get the meat from. So I'm not overly big on it being organic, but I do want it pasture raised or grass fed, because I do feel that cows that can roam freely, that have space to move, there's a different vibration that these animals then bring to the meat that I'm going to consume versus a cow that is, you know, right up against every other cow, never seeing sunlight. Their vibration is very low, and I would be consuming that very low vibrational food. And I really do believe in, you know, what we consume and how it fuels us. So I'm very lucky that I have a butcher that I trust in town. So I get all my meat from this butcher. We have a local farm that I get all my produce from, so I eat seasonally. So it's not necessarily organic, but it hasn't been fogged coming from, the US or Mexico. There's not all of that transportation. I know that they've just harvested that food. It's from this year's crop. I get to know them. I'm supporting another business as well. And then anything in between, I'll get from, our local Sobeys, but that is very minimal because I try to base our food on a meat, some vegetable, and then maybe a little bit of rice or some quinoa or something like that. But we don't eat a lot of processed. So we really do build our meals like around our protein source and then our good quality vegetable, and then kind of filling it in if we need to from there. So I feel like if we could get back to something like that, it would flourish. Like farmers, where we live, we drive through the country and you see so many farms up for sale. And it's so sad because if we don't have them, the only option is that commercially raised meat. And then we don't really know kind of what's put in it, the quality of life of these animals. And that means a lot to me to know. So that's kind of what is part of when I work with somebody is we really start talking about the quality and how our food is raised.
Yeah. I think that's so cool. I love that. We've done that a few times where we've gone up north, and there's a farm on our way there, and they have organic chickens, and so we'll stop in, and Mel's done a bit of ordering that way or through the market. But I think that for most people, they may not have the ability or the ease of doing something like that. But it does kind of remind me of that whole concept of like when you go to the grocery store, right? You shop around the exterior, right? Yeah. And maybe it's not every meal this week, but maybe one meal is zero processed foods this week, right? Where you're focusing in. And then, maybe tomorrow I'll have a date and chocolate bite instead of the Twix. So it's like, I don't know. For me, I'm thinking like I have to do this by chipping away at one little thing at a time. And this week it's going to be one thing. Next week it might be something else. And then hopefully get to a point where, because for me, I mean, at this point, like the weight is the weight. Like I'm not, I don't think it's ever going to change. This is my DNA. But I feel like there's definitely an opportunity to be more thoughtful about what I'm consuming and to make sure that it's fueling me in a way. Like I feel like as I get older, it's become more important to me for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then I would challenge you too, to when you do have, or you've committed to, you know what, today I'm going to try to make it a very minimally processed day. I challenge you to write down how you feel that day. How do you feel after you eat? Bloating, gas, and mood, all of those things, but then also pay attention to your joints. How do your joints feel? How does your mobility feel? How did you sleep that night? And then the next day when you go back to kind of a little bit more processed foods, do the same thing. And then start to compare as you make those tiny little habit changes. How did I feel this day versus this day? Oh, I felt great this day. Not the greatest this day. Let's bring a little bit more of that good day into my week. Yeah. And that's how we can make a little bit of those changes when we're seeing firsthand, it didn't, my knees didn't bother me today because as we,
I can close my hands.
That's going to happen, right? Is that inflammation in our joints. So paying attention to that as well. And then you can really feel empowered to be like, I don't really want to feel achy. I don't really want to not be here to see my grandkids or to be able to lift them or walking and break a hip, those kind of things. I don't want that myself. And then that's how we can start to fuel these little changes.
Interesting. Okay. So you I saw that you offer a DUTCH hormone test. What is this?
Yeah. So what is a functional test for hormones. It stands for dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. And why I like to use this test is because it goes a little bit beyond just that surface level of hormones. So it does test for your basic sex hormones, your testosterone, your estrogen, your progesterone, but it's going down another level specifically for estrogen. So we metabolize estrogen in two different pathways, one being very protective and one being very carcinogenic, leading to estrogen dominant disease like breast cancer. So this is something the DUTCH test can show. And so we can use these results to really start to either work on detoxification. Why aren't you processing your estrogen the way you should? Why is it being recycled? Where in, X, Y, and Z years would this lead you if you did nothing? So we can really use these testings as preventative care, as well as a little bit of a fuel and root cause for what might be exacerbating weight retention when we enter perimenopause and menopause, what's kind of going on there. And then we can really work with diet, lifestyle, supplementation to start that holistic or natural approach to starting to balance hormones.
Okay, so I see the weights behind you. So I'm going to assume that when you get that profile from somebody that you're working with, and you understand where they're lacking, and you start to kind of work with them to build, I guess, a program in a sense to balance their hormones. Exercise, I'm assuming, is part of that. So what do you, because in my mind, I'm thinking if you're trying to lose weight or if you're trying to get healthy, it's a gym membership and you're going whole hog with it. So explain to me what we need to do.
So most times I'll ask women when they come to me, like, well, what are you doing right now? And I hear the same thing all the time. I'm doing so much. I'm exercising all the time. I'm on the elliptical, the treadmill. I'm doing all the cardio classes. That's all I'm doing all the time. I'm not losing any weight. Why? And what people don't understand is that when we're doing mass amounts of cardio, it's working our cardiovascular system. We're burning calories in the moment. But what we really want to switch over to is resistance training. But I'm going to touch just one moment on another test that I pair with DUTCH testing, and that's my HT test, which is a hair trace mineral test or hair tissue mineral test analysis. And what this does with DUTCH is it can show me different ratios of mineral excess, mineral, if we're too high in certain minerals, and I can see a lot of what's going on with the adrenals in that too. So if somebody's mineral levels are showing they're in a very exhaustive state, and then they're telling me they're doing cardio, and then I can see on their DUTCH test, their cortisol level is very low. That is something, those high intensity workouts are something I'm going to be able to stay away from and bring in more supportive exercise while this person's building their system back. So they don't have to, it's about working smarter, right? Not harder. We don't want to kill ourselves in the gym if we know we are low in cortisol, or we're low in a specific mineral like sodium, which fuels the adrenal glands. And then I would be like, let's do some resistance training paired with yoga. And then they can work with that for their body, for their hormonal profile or their biology makeup, that they can be working out appropriate for them, still hitting their goals, still supporting weight loss, but it doesn't look the same for every woman. But resistance training, usually as we hit perimenopause into menopause, even post-menopause, it's one of the most important things because we're building a very strong musculoskeletal system. That's what we want. We want to be able to walk, stand, sit as we get older. We want strong muscles. Our testosterone starts to decrease as we hit 30 on a steady decline. So resistance training actually is going to boost our testosterone naturally. But also when we add more muscle to our body, we're boosting our metabolism in the moment, but also throughout the day, our metabolism is going to be boosted. So it is more beneficial for weight loss to be doing resistance training, so lifting heavier weights versus doing cardio.
That is so fascinating. I had no idea. So it's not necessarily about all the cardio. It could be a combination, or it could be more resistance training or like lifting heavier weights than it would be to actually, be running on the treadmill. Okay.
At
Very
this
interesting.
point in my life, I need mobility training is what I need. I think there's definitely inflammation. Like I feel my joints are different from what they used to be. My knees, my hips, I find I'm not sleeping as good because I'll lie on one side and I'll it'll be sore. It'll be sore. I'll have to roll over to the other
Yeah.
side. So I'm not getting great sleep. So for me, I
Mhm.
would love to learn a little bit more. I'd love to try some yoga or something. I feel like that would be so
Well,
good
Yeah.
for me.
it's hard. I tried it
Yeah.
once, and like, so I've tried it once, and it is it's a workout. Like, don't fool yourself. It's not just stretching. It's a
Oh,
workout.
I
And
know. I wasn't like I
yeah,
know it's a workout. I know that
yeah,
the
yeah,
more you get better at it, the more it's almost like you're bearing your own weight, like the what do you call that when you
yeah,
bear your own weight on the exercising? But I for
yeah,
me it's just about making the time just to do stretching and I don't
yeah.
Yeah.
do that enough, right? Like
So, Christine, like, do you work with people like CeeLo and I who would be
we
like,
would be your
okay, so
worst
let's
students, I swear. We would
oh
be so
Lord
bad.
have mercy. We would show up to your class with donuts and no, we would not. Would we? I don't know. We
Quick.
used to go to Weight Watchers. We would weigh in and then we'd go pig out on junk food. I remember that. So
We're
that's how,
bad.
but I mean, people who like, okay, so CeeLo, I
Now we're
know you've
paying
got a
for all
dog.
that though. Now we're paying for
I
that.
we are. But you have a dog, so at least you're out there walking,
Yeah.
a few times a day, with the dog or whatever. I used to walk for 30 minutes every day, and then for the last year, for some reason, I just stopped, and I don't know why. I got really busy with work, and I just didn't make the time. But for people like us who are a little bit older, specifically me, who's pretty much, kind of still in life. I mean, is this something that we could like? Do you work with people like us? Let me ask that. And then your classes for exercise and yoga and anything else. I mean, what are the fitness levels have to be?
Absolutely. So in my Balancing Hormone Shedding Pounds program, so that's my program that's more specific to weight loss.
Mm-hmm.
So it comes with a Dutch test, but then it comes with workouts every week. So there's 3 workouts every week, and they kind of range between resistance,
Mm-hmm.
and they're more circuit style. So they're a shorter duration, and they would be more reps. So we're working a little bit of that cardiovascular system at the same time we're working resistance training as well. I'm really big on keeping those kind of workouts between like 35 and 40 minutes. A lot of us don't have a ton of time to be committing to our exercise. So they're very quick and effective workouts. But I always pair my more higher intensity or my resistance with some breath work at the end. Anytime we are exercising, it's still a stressor, even though it's a positive stressor, but we still want to bring ourselves back down to that parasympathetic response. We lower our cortisol at the end of our workout. But with my workouts, I show modification. So I've had people in their 70s in my workout classes. So they're all virtual. So I actually went through some of my workouts with a back and a hip injury. So I was modifying, and I had one of my personal training clients come and do some of the advanced moves. So from there, I was really able to understand what somebody that had limited mobility would go through. And from there, I was able to show a very base level of if somebody was just coming into exercise and what they could do, how they could modify these exercises. Mm-hmm. And then the same thing for somebody who's much more advanced, how they can progress in these exercises. Because I really do want women to see, okay, we can start here and we can kind of go to the middle, and then we can end up at that more advanced. It doesn't have to be we're right there, right, all at once, and then we have, sore muscles for 3 weeks and we hate our lives and we never want to go back to exercise. So I do talk about how and when we would overload or pick up a heavier weight, or how you should be feeling, or what I would want your heart rate to kind of be at, or your perceived rate of how many more reps could you even do at the weight you're using. So I like to really educate in my workout classes. You'll see me die on video. Sometimes I pick too heavy of a weight and I walk off camera. But I really do like women to see, right? I'm working out with you guys, and I make it fun. And, sometimes because I'm talking to myself because they're pre-recorded, I can be silly and I don't have, the camera right in my face, and it's very authentic. But so they're very much geared towards somebody just starting out all the way to somebody being advanced, quick I don't want them to be super time consuming. They're all done at home with dumbbells, some resistance bands. You don't need a lot of equipment to get a really good workout. And then I always tell women 3 times a week for resistance training, and then fill the other days with some walking. Like, that's all we really need. Is we want that movement, especially the walking, to boost our lymphatic system, get everything kind of going. It doesn't have to be high intensity all the time.
Okay. That's fantastic information.
I'm like ready.
Yes,
I'm like ready to go, man.
I know. It feels a little motivating, doesn't it?
Totally
in a sense?
Motivating.
Yeah.
Talking to you has
Because
been
there's
so motivating.
Yeah, it feels like it's actually doable. And I think that, my takeaway from this is not necessarily, I mean, hey, let's be real. If I could lose weight, I would gladly sign up. But, I know that I've got to be very careful with what I do. But for me, my takeaway is, just understanding a little bit more about food, understanding about what makes me feel better. And if I can actually maybe try to start focusing a little bit more on that for my own health. And then that exercise thing that you just mentioned, I mean, that sounds doable for me too. Right. So it is, it's
I think
what I'm hearing is your podcast, you might want to just do a live workout.
Oh, simmer down now. Simmer down. How about I eat
challenge us?
the fake Twix or the all natural Twix on the pod? I could do that.
Okay. We do a cooking thing. No, you know what? I think one day. So here's the thing. I know that we need to have Christine back for a couple of things. So maybe we add a third thing and we actually do an exercise snippet on YouTube and see, you know what? Why not? Okay. If I'm saying that it's okay, you should be fine with it because you're a little bit more. Yeah. But Christine, I think we need to have you back because there's a couple of things that I actually want to really go into a deep dive with you on. One is, I know that from some of the stuff that I've read off of, some of your Instagram pages and Facebook, et cetera, that, there's some information about hair loss that you might have as well. So I think I'd like to bring you back to talk about that because that's a big concern for me because I do suffer from that. And then I think it would be a lot of fun to actually have you back as well to talk about debunking diets, like the fad diets that are out there. That would be a lot of fun too.
I would love that.
Okay, perfect. So recurring guest, I see, CeeLo, coming up here. Absolutely. But I want to leave this with one last question, which is, what is your take on Ozempic?
So this, I feel like, is a very loaded question because we're in a time where quick fixes, prime, next day delivery is all what everybody wants, right? Nobody really wants to put that hard work into it. And if it was so easy, everybody would be doing it, right? But with Ozempic, if you're type 1 diabetic, if this is something that you need for life-saving reasons, obviously that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to it in the sense of somebody taking it specifically for weight loss that is not diabetic. There are much more natural routes to take. And if somebody has exhausted all of those natural routes and they land in that spot, then, I hope that's the right choice for them. But a lot of times women haven't tried the natural route. They want that quick fix. They're not really educated or informed on the side effects of taking this drug. A lot of the times it decreases pancreatic function, bowel obstructions. One of my clients was in the ER with a bowel obstruction before she came to me when she was on Ozempic. So there are very serious side effects. So to me, if there's a side effect that can be life-changing for the negative, to me, there's so many other avenues that I would really encourage women to take. Get your hormones checked, use some functional testing, work with somebody that is dedicated to empowering you to understand your body and your hormones and how to be successful, and not trying to kind of monopolize on that weight loss trend that everybody kind of falls victim to. But for me, I am not a fan of Ozempic. I'm not a fan of when you go off Ozempic, a lot of times that weight comes back and then we're left in that yo-yo state again, that mental health issue. Just to me, the benefit doesn't always, weigh the consequences that can happen. So that would be a thumbs down for me.
For you. Okay. Thank you. No, that's very interesting. That's good. Christine, it was such a pleasure to have you on our podcast. You have so much amazing information, and I know I can see CeeLo's like nodding. She's like,
I've been like taking notes the whole time, like for my own self, just to like write that stuff down.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to have you back, Christine. I think for our listeners, let's just make sure that if they do want to contact you, you're online at the Christine Glaves, Glaves, and you're on Instagram and Facebook as well. And I think you also offer a free ebook, Balancing Hormones, Shedding Pounds, A Women's Guide to Reclaim Their Body. So if anybody does want to get in touch with you, hopefully they can do that. And we'll make sure that we post your contact information as well on our Instagram page also. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. Can't wait to have you back.
All right, Bo, that's it for this week.
Until next time.
Thanks for taking a seat at the table today. We love our dinner guests.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow The Dinner Agenda on the podcast platform you use so that you don't miss any new episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Dinner Agenda.
We look forward to hearing your comments, questions, and even ideas you may have on future episodes.
Thanks for taking this journey with us.